Yo, what is up, guys? This is Pedro here. Today, I'm going to be talking about 5 veteran wide receivers that the Redskins should sign now that Kelvin Harmon is out for the season after tearing his ACL. And I'm also going to be talking about the Redskins front office hire. They hired former Panthers director of college scouting Eric Stokes as director of pro scouting yesterday. And I'm going to try to predict what the really bad news that's going to drop tomorrow concerning the Washington Redskins and what I think it's going to be. If you guys are new, subscribe for Redskins and NFL content. So let's get into the video. As you guys all know, Kelvin Harmon tore his ACL a month ago and was reported yesterday, which really sucks. It's a big blow to the wide receiving corps that was already pretty thin, and now almost certainly the Redskins will sign a veteran wide receiver. So I'm going to be talking about 5 veteran wide receivers that they should sign. So let's get into it. So number one is Josh Gordon. I think this is the best option right now available because he has been working out a lot this offseason. And last year, he didn't have a great year, had about 440 yards, but only played in 11 games and was kind of hurt in those games. But if you look at his 2018 year, in 12 games, he had 740 yards. And that's really good numbers right there. He's an outside receiver, so he kind of fills the void of Kelvin Harmon. It's about 6'3", 225 pounds, about the same body as Antonio Gandy-Golden, so can help him develop. And I think it would be a really good signing. And best of all, in 2013 had about 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns. And you know who that was with? His wide receiver coach was Scott Turner, who of course now is our offensive coordinator in Washington. So I do think it would be a good marriage between the two sides, the Redskins and Josh Gordon. I think it would work out. And Josh Gordon and Dwayne Haskins were talking to each other about possibly joining, and they were happy about it. So it comes down to the Redskins front office, but I think it would be a good marriage. Like I said earlier, I think it would work out well. I definitely think he would start over AGG, but at worst case scenario for him, he comes off as a rotational receiver, or as our fourth receiver, and gets about 400 to 500 yards. But I do think if we do sign him, he's going to be our outside receiver, at least for the beginning, until if he gets injured, or if AGG is absolutely dominating in the season, then he'll probably come off the bench. But I think he can get 500 plus yards for us, and if he's healthy the whole year, plays 14 plus games, I honestly think he can get 800, 900 yards. I mean, in 2018, he was on pace for about 1,000 yards. So I do think if he plays a full season, he can make a really big contribution for the Redskins. And I think he can help our young wide receivers develop because all of our wide receivers are very young. Terry McLaurin is a little older, but he's still only his second year in the NFL. Kelvin Harmon also was a second-year wide receiver. Steven Sims as well was a second-year receiver. And Antonio Gandy-Golden is a rookie, so they're all super young. Cody Latimer was kind of going to be that veteran presence, and we'll see if that situation, what happens with that, if he gets suspended or gets cut, or if he stays on the team and battles out for a roster spot. But I think regardless of what happens with that situation, I do think we're going to sign some type of wide receiver, but I think Josh Gordon should be at the top of the list because he will most likely not get suspended. He just has to apply for reinstatement, which he already did, and if he gets accepted, I think he's going to be able to play week 1, which would be really nice. So now on to the most controversial player on this list, and it is, of course, Antonio Brown. He is by far the best wide receiver available, and he was really, in my opinion, a top 2, top 3 wide receiver from really 2014 till 2018. It was him and Julio really for that whole time battling out for that best wide receiver. He was an absolute beast. Almost 1,700 yards in 2014, 1,800 yards in 2015. Absolute beast. Just look at his stats. 2018, his last year where he played more than 14 games. He played in 15 games, 1,300 yards, which is considered a down year for him, which is still incredible, and had 15 touchdowns. Absolutely balled out. He was an absolute beast, but that's not the question. It's the off the field issues. That's why he only played 1 game last year. He got traded from the Steelers to the Raiders, and with the Raiders, he didn't even play a single game, had that whole helmet drama and everything else. He had a confrontation with the GM, Mike Mayock, and with John Gruden. Sorry. So then he got released from there, signed with the Patriots, and then had a bunch of issues there. And then after that, he just went on a roller coaster. A bunch of really bad things happened with him, and people don't like seem to remember that if we do or realize that if we do sign Antonio Brown, there is almost no doubt going to be a suspension handed to him. I don't know for how long, whether it's 4 games or whether it maybe be 8 games. So really, you want someone who's going to be able to be on the field week 1, and Antonio Brown isn't going to be able to do that. But regardless, he would be absolutely insane lining up opposite side of Terry McLaurin, him, Steven Sims, and Antonio Brown. All of them together would be absolutely amazing. A lot of people compare Steven Sims to Antonio Brown, and I think he could help develop Steven Sims' game a lot. But again, the off the field issues, and also you don't want him rubbing off on our young receivers the wrong way. His diva mentality, it would help us out a lot, but is it really worth it? I'm kind of in the middle on this one. Before this Kelvin Harmon injury and the Cody Latimer situation, I really didn't want to sign him because I didn't think it was worth it. But now with Cody Latimer getting arrested, and Emmanuel Hall tearing his Achilles, and Kelvin Harmon tearing his ACL, I think we should seriously think about it. I would much rather have Josh Gordon, but I would think about signing Antonio Brown or some of these other veteran wide receivers that I'm going to be talking about in a little bit. But it's very, very controversial. This is the biggest question right here. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments down below. But he would be an absolute beast, like I said. He's still in the relative prime of his career, still had a great year, an elite year in 2018, and played okay in his first game with New England last year. So let me know what you guys think. The next one, which is I think is pretty realistic, Demarys Thomas. Demarys Thomas is a little bit old, 32 years old, but last year he had about 430 yards, 1 touchdown. So he can still produce. He's about the same body type as Josh Gordon and AGG. So he could help out develop AGG. And in 2018, 677 yards. So played really well 2 years ago, and I think he could help us out a lot. He's a veteran wide receiver, and if you think about it, last year he only played in 11 games and still got about 433 yards, and he was playing with Luke Falk and Trevor Siemian for a bit. I know Trevor Siemian was like a quarter of the game, but he wasn't playing with good quarterback play until Sam Darnold played, and that wasn't very good quarterback play. So I think if he went to Washington and played 16 games, and not even as a starter, but I think as a rotational player, I think he could get about 500 yards, which would be pretty good. Let me know what you guys think about Demarys Thomas. I think it would be realistic, and we could get him for a 1-year deal, extremely cheap, and he could help lead our young wide receivers and give him some tips. I think it would be really, really a good signing. He probably, besides Josh Gordon, is my favorite. Of course, Antonio Brown is the best option here by far, talent-wise and production. You know what you're going to get from him, but it's the off-the-field baggage. The next player is Chris Hogan, and Chris Hogan, man, I don't know. I think this definitely could happen. Ron Rivera signed him last year in Carolina. He's about 6'1", 210 pounds, can play slot and on the outside, but I don't know. Last year played 7 games, only started 1, had 15 targets, 8 catches for 67 yards. I think he was playing hurt for a lot of those games, but really didn't play good at all. Also didn't have great quarterback play. But in 2018 with New England, played pretty good, 532 yards, and he definitely would be a rotational wide receiver. He would not be starting, in my opinion, unless we have even more injuries. I think he would come off the bench or be a rotation wide receiver and get about 300, 400, maybe 500 yards. I think he would be a slightly upgraded version of Cody Latimer. I think he would be a pretty good receiver and could help out our young wide receivers develop a lot. I think it would be a solid signing, but again, I'd rather have Josh Gordon or Demarys Thomas than Chris Hogan. The last guy on this list before we talk about Eric Stokes is Taylor Gabriel. Taylor Gabriel is still relatively young, about 28 years old last year with Chicago. Didn't play amazing, played in 9 games, 350 yards, but if you look at it, only played in 9 games. So if you look at 2018, he about 688 yards and had about the same yards per game average. So he was producing around the same rate as last year, just got hurt. And again, was playing with Mitch Trubisky, who is not a great quarterback at all. So I think if Haskins develops this year and is playing better, I think Taylor Gabriel would be a solid option. The only problem with Taylor Gabriel is he's not really an outside receiver. He's more of a slot wide receiver. He's very, very small, like you guys saw earlier. 5'7", 168 pounds. That's very, very small. Kind of like a Steven Sims, so I don't know if it would be the right thing to sign him. Let me know what you guys think about him. It's a little bit, I don't know. I don't know if I'd rather have him or Chris Hogan just because of the wide receivers we already have on the team. Okay, so now onto the Eric Stokes thing. This is going to be really quick. Like I said, we hired him and because of the firing of Alex Santos. And I think, guys, the thing about Alex Santos is going to be very, very ugly. Keep an eye out for that. That's going to drop tomorrow, I believe, in the Washington Post. So stay tuned for that. I might make a video on that depending on how ugly it is. I might not be able to or I might not make it. But I've heard things that has something to do with Dan Snyder. We'll see. It's gonna be ugly.